The world experiences a lockdown unheard of in human history. Radical measures are taken to avoid a public health catastrophe. Enormous resources are mobilized to keep the economy on life support, debunking the myth that governments can't govern anymore in the age of globalization. Everybody realizes now how much societies depend on the tireless work of poorly paid women and men providing truly essential services in hospitals, nursing homes, shops, transport, and the entire public infrastructure. Our collective vulnerability demonstrates the need for inclusive societies. The virus can kill anybody. No one can be safe until everybody is safe. Though, with every day of the crisis, it also becomes clearer that not only the elderly, but also the poor are at a much higher risk than those with spacious housing, home offices, and home deliveries.
This crisis demands and offers the opportunity to set new priorities in our societies. Quality public health and care services, universal social protection, food security, adequate housing, as well as universally accessible water, sanitation, and electricity are essential for all of us. Thus, post-corona must not be simply about restarting our economies. It must be about redirecting them towards greater equity, environmental sustainability, and democratic participation. However, while COVID-19 is an unprecedented shock to the global economy, it will not by itself resolve the fundamental problems that predated the pandemic. Indeed, the virus reveals through a magnifying glass the deficiencies of a world economy shaped by profit maximization, tax avoidance, and corporate irresponsibility. For the sake of enterprise competitiveness, wages are suppressed, generous tax exemptions granted, public services downsized, and environmental degradation accepted. In particular, governments in the developing world are squeezed between the blackmail from global corporations for ever lower taxes, the credit ratings of financial markets, and the conditionalities of IMF and World Bank. Under such conditions, most governments have surrendered to the constant ideological drumfire to downsize the state and thus have marketized whatever can be marketized. Lacking the resources and the political will to stop exploitative business models, they have neglected the necessary investment in robust public infrastructure and crisis prevention. Hence, not only public health systems, but large parts of our entire global economy are lacking the resilience to cope adequately with a pandemic, which, as epidemiologists are warning us, will remain a constant threat.
The virus by itself will not alter power relations in our economies and societies. The rich were getting an ever larger part of the global wealth before the crisis. The excessive power of brands and retailers in global supply chains means that economic decisions taken at the other side of the planet can dry up supplies and diminish demand, triggering economic standstill and capital flight. Nowhere has this become more apparent than in the global fashion industry. Orders were cancelled, payments were stopped, and millions of workers, without any social protection, lost their jobs, not even paid for the work they had already done. Lead firms are cutting their losses, leaving suppliers and overstretched governments to deal with the social and economic fallout of collapsing orders and mass unemployment. Corporate social responsibility commitments of multinational companies did not live up to the occasion and proved inadequate to regulate global supply chains and improve working conditions. And finally, political democracies were already increasingly corrupted by money and undermined by rebel-rousing authoritarianism. The failures of Putin, Trump, Erdogan, Bolsonaro and the likes to protect their people show that lies, repression, incompetence and ignorance are not only morally wrong, but are killing thousands of people. There is no reason to assume that these trends will magically dissipate after the crisis. The mighty and powerful will display all their creativity and influence to shape any new order according to their old interests. The response to this crisis will, one way or another, set the course for the future. Therefore, there's a pressing need for open debates on policy alternatives underpinned by principles of solidarity within countries and globally. In rich countries, governments released unprecedented emergency funds to avoid the worst. Meanwhile, governments of poorer nations with weak currencies have neither the resources nor the financial instruments at their disposal to provide unlimited cash to shore up imploding economies. Under such circumstances, the economic hardship forces the poor to keep working despite the risk for their health and lives or to starve. The World Food Programme already warns of famines of biblical proportions. While there is at least some solidarity and burden sharing within nation states, global solidarity is far too little. Indeed, the only thing moving faster than the virus is capital fleeing from emerging markets. By April, 100 billions were transferred from poor countries to safe havens in the north. This is an outflow unprecedented in history, and it's depriving these countries from resources when they are needed most.
We need to resist the calls from vested interests to revive highly questionable production and consumption patterns. Some positive side effects of this pandemic can help to envisage a better future. We had forgotten how clean the air in our cities can be. We learn how many global meetings and conferences can be done online, and we experience the value of the neighborhood and solidarity. Resources mobilized to restart our economies must replace senseless overconsumption, hypermobility, and depletion of the planet with fairer distribution, shorter working time, universal public services, and truly green technologies. A post-corona order must provide better wages and secure employment for the millions of workers that get us through the crisis. Building a progressive coalition for change will be critical to redirecting the economy. Trade unions, as the largest democratic organizations of working people, other civil society and community organizations, and critical research are essential to deal with the challenges of the pandemic at work, at home, and at society at large. Democratic participation at the workplace and in all levels of society is indispensable for a crisis response towards an economic system where people take precedence over markets and business interests. This will be impossible without a trade union movement that has the right, the willingness, and the capability to act as a countervailing force to capital interests. Policy alternatives need to respond to the complex and interrelated challenges posed by COVID-19. In this course, we will focus the debate on solutions to essential post-corona questions. How best to protect people's health? How to provide income for all people in need? How to secure emergency funding and finance the recovery? And how to redirect the economy to invest in socially and environmentally sustainable future. Join us in this open debate to learn and share ideas together.